Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve. Today I got M Davies on from Ice and Dice. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Did I get that right? It's Ice and Dice, right?
Dice on ice. So
Dice on
very
Ice.
close.
Oh, correct me whenever I get it wrong. Please do. So,
Yes.
Dice on Ice. I had Connor on a while back. Now I got the second half. M on. How are you? How are things going for your apocalypse?
Well, they're going. They're getting bleaker and bleaker. I think. Um,
I
yeah.
know. I think
The
we're gonna go the other way soon.
yeah. Yeah. No, we're gonna add total opposite way in our next rating. No, but yeah. We're doing some writing for the sequel to our book, The Ravaged Wasteland of Cryfoth, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
has been great, and it's yeah, we're just
And that's right.
trying to
You
get in
guys
some of
like
the things that
things
we didn't.
bleak.
Oh yeah, bleaker the better. Yeah,
That's your whole jam. You guys put together a whole book on that.
yeah, everything that is a curse to players and what players don't like and survival and stuff. We put that in just
So
for the DM's own.
so you guys
Mhm.
have put out that product, right? But then you more recently went and like on some real life adventures. Did you learn anything from that? Like, oh man, this should have definitely went into that product.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I was working in a desert. Technically, it was a desert that I was working in, so it was very hot.
Uh,
And something that I learned is that when it does rain, the sand is very slippery and it's impossible to walk on. So I'm like, oh, we should have added that. Like, if it ever does rain, it just makes things worse instead of better.
yeah. Well, that's pretty wild too to think about. Like, it's one of those things that like you're in a desert and it's dry and you know water is a big issue and you're like, oh, thank God, rain. And then all of a sudden, you can't keep your footing. You're like
And
cursing the
then,
thing you were
yeah,
praying for.
yeah, exactly. And you sink into the sand. The sand is very there's quick mud, which
Yeah.
is horrible. You lose everything, your shoes.
Oh no! Finally, like you see the meme with like from my childhood, I thought quicksand would have been far more prevalent. And
Oh
it's like
yeah,
all the different TV shows of people stuck in quicksand. You got to live it.
yeah, yeah. I was in quick mud because
Yeah.
it was wetter. But I
Yeah.
was in it down to my waist once, and I was very stuck,
Oh no.
and had to have two or three people help me to get out of it.
How tall
Yeah.
are you?
I'm almost 6 feet, so
Okay.
that it
So
went
you're
down a
better off
lot.
than me. I'm
Yeah.
like 5'7". I'd be like, oh no, I'm gonna die. I'm sinking.
Keep sinking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Is that something you want to talk about?
Uh, but sorry, which sorry.
I said, is that something
The
you want to talk about? You had done this like expedition for 4 months, and
oh yeah, sure. I
I just think it's kind of
went
cool. That's
on.
all because you're like a
Yeah, it
real
was
life
super
adventurer.
cool. Yeah. That was the plan, actually, just so I could get real life experience. That was the only goal, so I could be better at my gaming. And yeah, so I went on a 4 month adventure sponsored by the government of Canada, and I involved going for 14 days in the wilderness with uh, backcountry, full on. Like, we didn't see anyone. We were in the mountains and we didn't see anyone for 14 days other than our little group of people. Um, and then I did 3 months of working with biologists and paleontologists, and I found some dinosaur bones and got to hunt down some, not hunt down, but in the literal sense, but track down some different types of animals that we wanted to find, and saw some really cool birds and some really cool rocks. So it was so fun.
So did you have to worry about like I don't know if there's any like big cats out there, but big cats or bears?
Oh yeah, when we were camping in the mountains, we actually had a bear pass within a few feet of our campsite. There was a huge bear paw print in the
Yeah.
morning when we went out to get water, and the bear had also gone to get water earlier that morning. So um, we had to do bear calls when we were walking, which was just screaming, just being very loud, and because most of the time bears will run away from you, and the only
Mhm.
time they really attack is when they're scared. So when you sneak up on them, so yeah.
What kind of bears did you have to worry about?
Um, I think we do have grizzlies up there, but mostly black bears,
Yeah.
which are not as bad. Not as bad. They're still
Not yeah.
bears, but yeah.
So like when you run games now, like can your players kind of expect some of this to seep into your games?
Oh yeah, yep, 100%. And even in my description as well, I feel like has gotten a lot better because I've been able to see so many different landscapes from this program that I've been able um, to talk about it and describe it in a lot more detail. I feel like it's really helped a lot. And then yeah, also I have that familiar sense of what it feels like to be in the forest and to be like a ranger and like track down animal trails and try and find your bearings.
Also, I imagine like having sunk into like uh you know not quicksand, but the wet sand up to your waist, like is definitely something now you can like really bring into your games when you're describing difficult terrain and hazards. And
Yeah,
were there
something
any
that I
moments
definitely think about.
were there any moments
Sorry.
where you're out there and like this is definitely going in my game? Does anything stand out?
uh Yeah, it was when we were following an old indigenous trail that they had walked. We were finding these stones that they had actually put the indigenous people had actually put in the fire, and it changed its color because they had yeah, put it in the fire, changes its color. So we were like tracking it and trying to find the ancient walking path of of where they went, of these they were usually they were hunting bison at that time. And I just remember that, and like so often in games you just roll survival or roll nature or something like that. And if you want to find a trace of someone or something that you're trying to track down, it's usually bark or broken tree limbs or something like that. But I know it's so specific and so weird, but I just love these rocks and that they changed color when they were in the fire. So that's such a cool way to like also track track
Oh,
things.
nice.
I Yeah.
Well, the devil's in the details, little things like that, that you can pull in from your real life experience is really cool. Double underscores a question. What were some of your favorite traps and moments in the Tomb of Annihilation? Were you surprised your character survived?
Oh yeah. So I was playing in Mini Train Domain's Tomb of Annihilation. Um Gosh, there were so many. I actually really liked the Tomb of Annihilation End Dungeon because it really reminded me of a Zelda dungeon, which I love because it had so many puzzles. Um, gosh, I remember the. I think the one I remember the most is the chests where each of the players had to go into a chest and something would happen to you, and wasn't great. It was a very horrible thing that would happen to you. And after the game, we did it. We solved the puzzle. But after the game, Jake had said, "Okay, I'm just gonna let you know that if my character had chosen any other box than the one that they had did by chance by rolling a dice, they would have died. 100% would have died." And
Oh no.
um, I was, yeah, it was. So also to answer that question, no, I was so surprised when Berlinia ultimately survived because there were so many just horrible, horrible things um, that could have, and I think by pure luck didn't happen. So very surprising, but it's definitely a fun game.
Nice. I have not. I've only played in one official published adventure so far, and we're in the middle of Curse of Strahd.
Oh
And
yeah.
also, it was my first character death in a while as well. Bobby Lassell. Is this saying that right? I'm probably butchering that. Finger of death me to death. So apparently we weren't
Oh
ready for
no.
that encounter. Uh,
Oh,
my
but
my
yeah.
my cleric hid
Oh,
in the flying skull, invisible, and
mhm.
I was like, all right, I got her right where I want her, and it didn't work out so well.
Nope. Had other plans. Yeah. Oh, I love Cruise of Strad. That's my. I think that's my favorite module to play and run. And yeah.
Yeah, you'd mentioned before we went live that you're running that.
Yeah. Just episode 35 aired yesterday. Uh, so yeah, it's been going on for a bit.
Oh yeah, you're pretty deep into that. You also had mentioned that you got to introduce the game to some new players as well.
Yes. Yeah. People who are on my program with me, I talk obviously a lot about RPGs because it's pretty much my life.
Yeah.
And they were interested and they wanted to play, and so I just ran them through a game with a dungeon and a dragon and a tavern,
Oh,
obviously.
nice. As
Yeah.
you do. And so, do you think you got any converts out of that?
Oh, yes. When I ended it, they were very mad. They were like, "No, we have to keep going. We have to see what comes next."
Yeah.
So a few of them definitely, I feel like, are going to want to play in a campaign, which is super great.
So, at what point of the program did that happen? Like beginning, middle, end?
Unfortunately, it didn't happen till the end.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
could
a
have had
few
a
weeks
captive
before
audience
we
for a
left.
while.
Yeah, I know. They were like, "Why didn't we? Yeah, why didn't we play this sooner?" We were literally not doing anything in the wilderness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we were talking about gaming before we got started, and you're playing in quite a few games. You had mentioned
Yes.
10ish. Can you name them all?
um, yeah. I have
I would lose
Curse
track.
of yeah. Oh yeah. I have a calendar, as you can
Yeah.
see me referencing here. I
Yeah.
have to have it on calendar. I have to have it on yeah. Um, Facebook events are
Yeah.
my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So of all those games, how many of them are you playing, and how many of them are you running?
I'm running two. Um, Technically I'm running three. I have not started that one up as of yet, but it'll be continuing on soon. I had to stop it because I was um, on that away. I was gone, and yeah, I'm running a Curse of Strahd game, and I am also running a game that is set in an RPG called Spire, and I'm also running, or will be running, a D&D game of a 5e setting that I am writing right now and working out the mechanics on, and it's like a modern day supernatural Buffy the Vampire Slayer esque feel to it. So yeah.
Oh, nice. So you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
write that out for 5e.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Spire. I'm not familiar with that one. What is Spire?
So Spire is a game where you play as Drow, and you have this place that you live called the Spire, and it's a bunch of different cities amalgamated into one, and you are trying to overthrow your essentially invaders who came. They are called Elfir. They're high elves, and they came in and they invaded spire, and now they're kind of controlling it from the drow, and you as drow have to try and take back your freedom. That's the whole premise of the game. It's insane. The abilities, and it's a very reactive, proactive game, with both the DM and the players, where the players can have these abilities that are just game breaking. Essentially, they can. There's a few abilities where they can just point to an NPC and they can just say, "You've been my ally this entire time," and the DM has to work with that and work it into their story.
What is the core mechanic?
Um, it's a D10 system, with a bunch of different pools, and you take stress when you do things, and you don't roll high enough on your D10, and if you take too much stress, something really bad happens to you.
Nice.
I've heard it's similar to Vampire. Vampire the Masquerade.
Okay.
Very similar in how they use the D10 system. Yeah.
Is there botches?
Sorry.
Is there botches? So that's like a mechanic thing from Vampire. It's like one of the few things I actually remember from Vampire. It's like, so like I think every time you get a 1, it's a botch. And the problem with pool systems is, like, the better you are at something, in theory, you have a bigger pool. But when you add like a botch mechanic, it also means you're more likely to have botches than not.
Yeah. I don't think Spire has that. It's just when you have a pool system, you just take the highest for it. So yeah, and then whatever that one is, that one number determines the outcome.
Gotcha. So Double Underscore wants to know, what does dice on ice mean? Is it because you are in Canada where it's cold and you roll on frigid surfaces?
Yeah, you got it. That 100%. That is that is why we named it on that, because yeah, we're Canadian, and ice, and then we roll dice, and then it's those shows too. They used to have all those shows like Disney on Ice and stuff like that, that I remember watching as a child. So that also spurred that on, of like having a show which is just D&D on ice.
Oh, nice. How did you get started with the YouTube channel and creating content?
So many other people were doing it. So many other people that we know in the community were doing it, and just having a really fun time with it, and being able to put on games, and people were watching it and engaging in it. And I think that's so fun to see, is to play in the game and then see people talking in the chat, and like, it doesn't even have to be about the game, but like just talking and just having a good time, and talking about whatever they want. And I love that. And we created it as well because it was a super cool way to meet new people, just to network, I suppose.
I have to agree. I mean, definitely it has expanded our horizons as far as meeting people, for sure. And also too, like, part of it is like you said, like kind of like networking, but it also pushes you to go out and do things you might not have done otherwise. Like, I had never been to a gaming convention before doing Nerdarchy, and I was like, I guess we're doing this thing, so we should check out gaming conventions and see what that's about.
Do some research. Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out I like it. So Chris says, I was thinking of LARPing with ice skates.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
I don't know. I've not ice skated in a long time. And when I did, all I could do is go like fast in a straight line. And then usually
and not stop. Yeah.
And not stop. I would crash. That's how I would stop.
Yeah.
Usually. It's all right.
Uh,
It's the winter. You're bundled up. You know.
it's a very soft landing. Snow, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very bad Canadian. I actually don't skate,
Oh no.
which is yeah, yeah, very,
Well,
very bad Canadian.
I grew up across the street from a lake, so
Ooh.
like in the winter time, my friends would all play like ice hockey. So it's like, oh, I guess I have to figure out how to skate. Not that I could like play hockey and skate at the same time. I could like do one or the other badly, but not
Mhm.
both together.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, you were mentioning about streaming games and seeing what's going on in the chat, and I have to agree that's kind of cool. Like even if they're not talking about the game, like you said, like people start to get to know each other from the chat, and like really like the chat. Like sometimes it's like the stream is just something that's going on while these other people are hanging
Mhm.
out. So
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I love that. And then occasionally, every so often, they'll tune into the game and they'll be like,
mm,
"Oh, this happened. Okay, and now let's talk about." And yeah, I love that. I think it's so cool.
yeah, absolutely. So do you prefer playing or GMing?
I definitely prefer playing. Um, I get very stressed out when I DM, so it takes up a lot of my mental capacities to DM.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of prep?
I don't. Uh, it depends on the game. Um, but I'm usually a very light prep GM. I like playing with players who will just take it in very different ways than I
Mhm.
would have ever imagined. So in a way, I can't prep because I have no idea what they're going to do. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I like that as well. I mean, I love having a group of players that aren't going to do anything that you expect and just do stuff because it just makes the game flow and gives me a chance to just kind of interact with the story that they want to try and tell.
yeah, exactly. I find if I prep too much, I get caught up in the points or the story points that I want to hit or anything
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, if I prep less, then I can, like you said, just really enjoy the story that the players want to tell, that we both want to tell, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess my method is to just throw out a bunch of plot hooks and see what they do with them, or if they do anything with any. Sometimes they just come up with their own. I don't know. I ran one campaign, and like their main thing was to build a bathhouse. Is became one of the ongoing plots. So I was like, okay, I guess that's
Yeah.
what we're doing. We're gonna have to figure, like they wanted to like figure out like having to like do the bureaucratic parts of it as well and like get the permits and stuff like that. And we even had a couple adventures that took place in the bathhouse. So
That's right. That's amazing. And that's something that, as a DM, you probably never thought that would, be something that they would want to do.
be
Um,
be very careful with
yeah.
who you hire for to do your contracting in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they hired a crazy gnome inventor um, to help with heating the bathhouse and heating the water. So he like you like inserted like a nexus to the elemental plane of fire
Oh,
uh,
God.
as a
Oh,
heating
no.
source, which they found out by accidentally getting sucked into the elemental plane of fire. So as you do.
As you do. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why, like, sometimes people like we'll get all kinds of questions, and we like people are like, my players want to do this. I'm like, well, let them. Just I don't know. They want to open a tavern,
Hmm.
let them. But what happens when the ale shipment goes missing? What are they gonna do?
Yeah. That's the thing. I like to give my players free reign. That way I can think of very imaginative ways to put so many obstacles in their
Yeah,
way. Um, and then at the end of the day, I can just, well, you wanted this, you wanted to do this. This is just the consequences of your actions.
that's exactly it. They want to do a thing, just say yes, and be like, okay, how can I mess up the thing they're trying to do? So that not
Yeah.
so that it gets messed up, but so then they have something they have to overcome, so they can fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
then
it's part of the
yeah,
fun.
yeah, they feel better too because they are doing something what they want, and they're able to overcome an obstacle of something that they care about, which I think is, yeah, that's always a great goal.
So you're playing in a bunch of games right now. Do you have a favorite character out of them all?
So currently, I am playing a Clockwork. I think my favorite is probably Dawnbringer's, my Clockwork Wizard, Fig or Figure Two Prometheus. Um, yeah, that's definitely he's so. I think he's very a very interesting character, very different, and I love the dynamics with the other players. So yeah.
Didn't you guys all just run like a mini series where everyone else also played Clockwork People?
Yes, we're actually currently still in that, and I believe this Thursday will be the last session of that little mini arc.
So I think Ted said that was spawned because in real life you were going to be away for a while, so you came up with something that your character was doing, and then so this is that, right? This is you guys doing what your character was doing, and then joining in as different characters.
Yeah, Fig had disappeared into another dimension while I went off, also disappeared into another dimension.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, now we're explaining where he went and how he's going to get re-involved with the Dawnbringers again.
Nice. That's a pretty big group now, right? What is there, like 6 or 7 players?
Yeah, yep, it's quite a big group. Very, it's never a dull moment with
Yeah.
them, which is so great. Yeah.
Props to Jake. That's pretty ambitious for an in person game. It's okay. It's not too bad, but a stream game, that's rough.
I think we have a really good group to do it. I do think
Uh,
that yeah, in many other groups that would be a lot of people, but this group is so great at letting so many people have the spotlight. You know,
yeah.
so I think yeah, it's really great.
So, what kind of content are you guys going to be coming up with in the near future?
Yeah. So in the new year, we have some planned stuff coming out. I want to do a. We had done one episode of where we did a warlock character build, where we put a whole backstory behind it and different ways. It wasn't just the mechanics, but it was also like a narrative story build
Mhm.
as well, that you could just put in or decide to play with in your games, and I want to do more of that because that was a lot of fun. That's something that one of my favorite things to do is to come up with the narrative part behind a character. And then also I want to put out just some helpful tips and tricks for people who are running modules. And the one that I'm going to do is Curse of Strahd because that's what I'm running right now. So those are plans. Hopefully they pan out sooner rather than later.
So, when you do builds, kind of like what's your approach? Where do you start from?
Um, I always start from narrative. I always think about the character that I would like to play, what I want their energy, I guess, to be. And if I'm playing a spellcaster, that's how I choose their spells, is how they would manifest that those spells and that ability, and then I choose spells based on how I imagine that. So I'm a very narrative first, mechanics later player and DM.
Yeah. I know because I know we've done quite a few character builds, and we kind of start like all over the place. Like I guess the one we are dropping this week is, and I think we've done a video on it, but now we're going to do the guide to that video, kind of. So the barbarian, and sometimes it's just like stupid puns, or maybe there's a story element we want to tell, or maybe there's just a weird mechanic combination we want to work out, and then the fun part is to try and you know put the dressing around and figure out the narrative to why this would work or why it would be that way. Um, I think our group has always looked at like character classes and races. We like always kind of broken them down to their features, and then like to combine them in different ways to make new things
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
instead of like I know where some people are just very much like you're a fighter, that's your profession, that's what you do, and then we're kind of more like nah, we mix this and that, and now it's a new thing, more so. But I don't know, just things that amuse ourselves and keep it interesting.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, yeah, with the amount of games you play, you can only yeah, be a very typical fighter so much, and I think
Yeah,
that's the fun comes in of trying to reimagine something so much so that it doesn't even resemble what it is mechanically.
yeah. So so what is kind of the gambit of characters you're playing right now?
I'm playing like just the whole array of characters. I always try. One of my things that I do is whenever I'm in a new campaign, I always try and play a character or create a character that is the antithesis of my previous character. So, for example, in Tomb of Annihilation, I played Berlinia, who was this very kind, sweet, soft-spoken Asimar warlock, celestial warlock, who's like healing and just very caring. And then in the next campaign that I was asked in, which was to be in a Waterdeep campaign, I played this very sassy kind of out for herself a rogue named Anna. So that's always what I try and do. So I'm playing with a bunch of different characters that are each kind of the antithesis to each other.
Yeah, I always like to try and play something different than what I played before. I mean, my default is like, what kind of dwarf? This would make a great dwarf. And I'm like, no, Dave, you can't do that. You can play something else. Um,
Yeah, yep.
yeah, so like the character that I was playing in the Curse of Strahd Ravenloft game was a Twilight cleric of Maglubliet, a human raised by goblins. I want to tell you, like, it's really a hard sell in Barovia trying to convince people to convert the McLubliet. They just weren't feeling it. Like, I put out all the selling points. Like, if you die in the afterlife, you literally get to fight orcs all day, every day for all of eternity, and no one was buying it. They were not signing up.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that would be at all.
I think at one point, like, I guess it's oh, what is the main NPC that you're trying to keep away from Strahd? All the names sound like really the same to me in that campaign, so I really have trouble distinguish them apart. It's her and the brother.
Oh yeah, Irina and
Irina,
Ismark.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think like when we first meet them, we're like burying the father, and I'm like tried to convince them to let me conduct the services and help them send them off. They weren't having
Not too pleased. Yeah.
it. But Tunk didn't make it to the end. He's not going to get his chance to help defeat Strahd. But he gets but the DM did let him escape Barovia and go into the afterlife, so that was nice.
Oh, that's nice of him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I replaced him with Captain Artemis Gluckenstein. The first captain of the bouncing battle brigade. So he's a battlesmith artificer that rides in the pouch of his kangaroo steel defender.
That's amazing.
I felt like we had enough seriousness with in Ravenloft. We needed something a little sillier. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. Ravenloft gets very serious.
and it was funny because like when he shows up, he's like riding in his battle kangaroo, and so like one of the players wasn't sure if he should be addressing the gnome or the steel defender.
Okay, which one's bigger? All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's it. So I described the Steel Defender as being a 7 foot kangaroo made of metal. So what
So cool.
so what is your like GMing style? Where do you like to focus?
Um, I'm a very hmm, I really like narrative and I love interactions with people. I love playing NPCs and I love um conversations with people, and I'm also very big conspiracy DM. Like I love
Yeah.
like the big, like things aren't always what or things are never as they seem, and there are so many people involved. It's a whole underlaying thing that the players are just these small little chess pieces that's in the grand cosmic scheme of the world, that's usually the games that I like to run. And also
So,
horror. I love horror.
do you have advice for inserting horror into a D&D style game?
Yes. I My biggest advice is it's really hard to insert horror into D&D because you're in a very nicely well lit room. There is no real danger, and you're just describing it to people. But I think there has to be right away. There has to be buy-in from everyone. Um, the players, the DM, there has to be this kind of agreement, and this can either be implicit, or I mean, if this is a new group of people that you're playing with, if I ever run a horror game for a new group of people, I will, explain this outright to them that this will be a horror game, and you have to have some points of levity. But if there is something that happens that is supposed to be scary, like buy into it. Like just go into it with that sense of how your character would be scared. Like and I find that if people buy into it and if they go in with that mindset, it actually affects the player, if the player agency, if that makes sense, of they actually become the character, and they get into it and they become scared, and it becomes a much better game. I think pacing is also very important to a horror game. You can't have horror after horror after horror after scary moment after, you have to have your highs and your lows. You have your moments of levity or even calmness, and then you hit them with the crazy monster or the ghost or whatever. But I think finding those highs and lows is also very important.
Yeah, I find games like D&D are really tough for horror because when you have a game where like the expectation is we're heroes and we kill monsters, horror kind of relies on you being afraid of the monster. Uh,
Hmm.
so getting that buy-in is super important, like you said.
And often, yeah, oftentimes, if I do run it usually in 5e, my horror games, but I will oftentimes not allow them to have weapons. I think for me, that's how I inflict
Yeah.
that horror aspect. Or like something's muted, or maybe they do have weapons but they're not great, or maybe there's an anti-magic field or around the monster, or something to take away a little bit of their power, not their agency, but just the raw mechanical power.
So Chris wants to know how early did you introduce Strahd to the party you were in your game?
Oh, I introduced him right away. My players went into the death house first, and they did the death house. And when they came out, Strahd was there clapping, of like, this is your first trial almost that I've put you through. This is the first game that you've played and you've won, kind of thing. And that was the first time. And then constantly, like, I would constantly have him in their dreams, visions. They would see him, they would talk with him. So when it came to the point, they actually just visited Strahd for dinner, he invited them as guests. They already knew him and were aware of what he was like, so it added this extra suspense. So yeah, I introduced them right away.
I think we've encountered Strahd twice so far, and we have the invitation that we haven't gone to yet. We also got uh Irenia killed and had to get her
Mm.
resurrected at the abbot
Oh no.
by the abbey. Yeah. So in order to do that, we had to go dress shopping. I don't know if that's actually part of it originally or not.
I know.
DM Jazzy Hands Alhenyo is an awesome GM and has been running us through it. And also, there's
Awesome. Yeah.
like, I guess the DMs Guild has like a supplement to it for like this. One of the objects you could get is the book that kind of gives the histories, and like there's an interactive supplement for that. So it's not like just the GM reading stuff to you, but you kind of like play through some of it and kind of like experience it that way. Uh, Double underscore wants to know: have you seen the Canadian shows Being Erica or Schitt's Creek? How would you D&Dize a similar story?
I haven't seen Being Erica, but I have seen Schitt's Creek. It's great. I really like it, and I would 100% do a D&D game of Schitt's Creek, but everyone's a goblin because that's how I imagine all the characters. It's just goblins.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, me and my wife has also watched it, and I think it's done. Right? They're not doing it anymore.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing about the lockdown and the pandemic is we have gone through so many shows.
So many,
So
all of them. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely feels like that. Or like you go through so many and like there's nothing to watch. And then all of a sudden like a bunch of different stuff drops at the same time. You're like, "Oh no, what do I watch?" So the
Yeah.
dilemma shifts the other way.
Hmm.
Um, Also, folks, if you have questions, feel free to ask, but just drop a question in front of it because it just makes it a lot easier to pull them out for sure. Um, so, is there anything in particular that you haven't run that maybe you want to?
Yeah. I run. I I'm not sure if I want to run anything.
Or
I'd love to
playthrough? We can
play.
flip it.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to play in a well, not D and out of D&D. I'd love to play in a Vampire Masquerade game. I haven't had the chance to do that yet, um, and I really, yeah, I would really love to just try out new indie RPG games this year. Um, Even ones that I don't know of yet. But
Yeah.
I did it a little bit at the end of last year. I played in Monster Hearts and a couple of other like of these very smaller games, and they're so cool and so amazing. Yeah.
Is there anything specifically on your radar?
Um, for the honor, I am going to be playing in, and that's really exciting. And I have wanted to play in it, and I finally get to, which is great. It's a like a DM-less game, which is
Yeah.
super cool. Hmm.
There is always way too many games and just not enough time.
So many. I know, so much amazing content that people put out
Uh,
is so cool.
and that being said, I'm playing in like half as many games as you are. And you said
Yeah,
you peeled that number back.
yeah. Hmm. I have
So
said no to a few campaigns, and a few have ended. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's
I
great.
mean,
I
so like I guess one of the things we try and do is like we'll run we'll run monthly games and we'll just rotate the Saturday. So it's like we're still gaming every week, but it's just like a different GM. And like me and Ted will each run a D&D game, and then we like to bring somebody else in to run a different system. So like right now we're playing the Expanse, and when we got a session or two of that left, and then I'm kind of hoping to go into Monster of the Week then. Um,
ooh, yeah.
I've played 2
Mm.
sessions of it, so the system's seems fairly straightforward and easy to run, and also just like played plenty of D&D, so I just want to switch it up and do something else.
Yeah, I find that honestly playing other games, other RPG systems help me when I inevitably return to D&D 5e.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like for us, like we'll always probably come back to D&D. I mean, if the last 20, 30 years or any, estimation of what we're going to do. But it is nice to break it up and you learn stuff when you play other games, and I feel like it kind of like resets things. It mixes it up in a nice way. Oh, this is a good
Yeah.
question for you. Double underscore again. Have you considered using the xenomorph from Alien in your horror game? They have a huge advantage to players even if they're armed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And space horror is another one of my favorite genres. So definitely, I'd put that in. So far in my horror games, I've put in a very abstract monster, like not like a real um, entity that they can fight. But if I ever did that, then definitely very similar, yeah, to like kind of the xenomorph from Alien would definitely go in there.
And they actually have that. There's an Alien game out, so you can actually just play that as well.
Ooh, yeah.
Um, One of the early 5e one shots that I ran was kind of like an amalgamation of the Zerg from StarCraft and Alien, and I just took like some of the different NPC stat blocks and mixed them with ANKEGs to kind of make
Oh no.
my Alien S type monster.
Oh
Uh,
god. Yikes, they're so scary.
yeah, well, they look kind of like, I mean, the art in 5e for the ANKEG is awesome, and they look pretty crazy in Alien as well. Um, that's why I like them, and then like kind of like up in their mental scores a little bit, and giving them some of the abilities from the NPCs. Like I use the knight, so I guess the knight has the ability that it can give its allies like that die for a boost. So I just kind of use that as like their hive mind, and then like for the queen, I took the ANKEG and mashed it up with the assassin, and then it was like the townsfolk were like going missing, and like when they find the lair where they have them, it's like it's I used the creep from StarCraft from the Zerg, covered that like all over the place, and like the missing townsfolk were like in these tubes and chambers and covered in the creep stuff. So also, I'm a big proponent of stealing from everywhere
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
shamelessly.
You Yep. There's so many cool ideas that once you take all the cool ideas together and you
Yeah.
amalgamate them, it becomes your own thing. So I think that's yeah, that's what I
So David wants to know if you looked at into Espergenesis.
Genesis. I don't think I've heard of that
So
actually.
I don't know. I have the books probably almost within arm's reach around here somewhere. Rich Lescaflair, he did Espergenesis, and it's like a sci-fi 5e mashup. Um, that's been out for a while, and the art in it is actually absolutely gorgeous. And I think the last PAX Unplugged I went to, Rich had run a game for a group of us, so I even got to play in it. And so from what I remember from the game, I was like, I just want to play one of those big bruiser lizard guys and shoot things, and that's what I got to do, and also tackle a hover bike. So from a hover bike. So I have checked it out. It's definitely a cool game for anyone that's looking to use 5e in science fiction and mash them together.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I've been using a lot of Absolute Tabletop's Harbinger.
Uh
They
huh.
have a playtest out, and that is kind of my go-to right now for 5e space. But I'll
Yeah.
definitely look into the Espergenesis. I think that sounds cool.
Yeah, Doug mentioned Hyperlanes is another one. Harbinger's another one. Mage Hand Press has one as well, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So there is like a bunch. There is definitely a bunch of flavors to explore if someone is interested in sci-fi into their 5e game. Um, what do you think the sweet spot is for starting play in 5e?
Like in terms of level or
Yeah,
how or
yeah, level, yeah, level. Sorry.
oh level. In terms of starting, I like third level. I think that if you are or fifth, third or fifth,
Yeah,
depending on the campaign, when you start out, um, I find first I get bored with very quickly.
yeah. I mean, third level, everyone's like their thing, right?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you're right.
exactly.
Dark Matter was the name of the game. Thank you, Doug. But yeah, I feel like third level is a good starting spot, and I usually start characters there. Am I if I run a one shot, it's usually like third, fifth, or seventh level.
Yeah, yeah. Fifth, I think, is a good for like either like a shorter campaign or something
Yeah.
that's like a little bit more heroic with maybe people who are a little bit more familiar with D&D. I did run a level 15 one shot. That was wow. Level 15 is so crazy.
Yeah, it gets tough once you get up there. What was the premise of
Mhm.
the one shot?
Um so the characters were elevated to they were adventurers in Faerun, and they had been elevated to the status of like almost like planeswalkers in like Magic the Gathering, that
Uh,
idea, so that they were literally being tested to see if they could become these guardians of the different planes and stuff. So they had to go through all of these different um tests, I guess, where they had to, fight a bunch of different elementals in all of these different planes, and then yeah, they had to do these this puzzle and stuff like that. So that was the one shot, and they won. Definitely, they passed all their tests. So mhm.
I I remember I ran for the one campaign that we were running. We started at first and took it to level 20th, and
Wow.
it was near the holidays, I guess a couple years ago. So I was like, let me run something holiday themed. And uh, Frog God Games has an adventure called Orcus Claws. It's for like, I think like third level characters. They're like 17th. And I'm like, I can fix this. I can make this work. So I just kind of like adjusted it on the fly. But there's like a portion where you're like, you're in the town, and from the town, you have to get to like the top of a mountain, and that's where like Orcus Claws is. And my one player is playing a sorcerer, and they're like, I cast wish, and I just wish this from here to there. So it just like wiped out all the encounters in between, and that is high level adventuring in a nutshell.
That is, yep. Hmm. Yeah, it's just I do this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
there's so much stuff to track as a GM and to figure out what they can and can't do. So it can make it a bit challenging. That's also why I think like those mid tiers are a bit more popular.
Yeah, definitely. Level 8, 9, 10, it's like you start feeling pretty powerful. Um in one game though, I did play a level 40 character, which was just it was that was even worse. That was the worst, I think, just to keep track of everything. Um I was playing a level 20 uh paladin,
Uh
Oath of
huh.
Conquest, and I in the game it was actually in Cryfoth. Someone else was running it, and my character consumed a demon, and the DM was like, "All right, you receive 20 levels of Warlock now." So
Oh wow.
had to add that on. It was like two different character sheets. It was It was crazy.
That sounds a bit crazy. James Introcaso wrote an adventure called Invasion of the Planet of the Tarrasques,
Ooh.
where like you don't fight a Tarrasque, you fight like multiple Tarrasques. It's a 20th level adventure. What is it? Game called Holcon. He had ran it for a couple of us, so it's just that was a lot of fun. I got to play A Way of the Astral Monk before
Mm.
before Tasha's had dropped, so it was the UA. So I played an armless monk, but because the way the astral, you can summon astral arms.
Whoa.
So and also it's kind of like it's channeling like my childhood with like they had like all the like Hong Kong martial arts movies that I would watch
Hmm.
Saturday afternoons. So that so that was a lot of fun. So I have gotten to experiment a little bit with it. Ted actually played a game where it was like what you mentioned, where but it was like all the players did it, where they did a Gestalt game and they did 20 levels of two different classes.
It's madness. You spend like I think you spend the whole session just looking at your character sheet trying to remember all the stuff you can do.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm just gonna hit it with my sword because I don't know what else to
Yeah.
do. There's too
I give
many
up. I
choices.
just hit it. Yeah. Yeah.
So David did a one shot with a full party of level 20 kobolds. Kind of nuts. That is a lot of kobold for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, that would be such a fun game idea of like doing like level 20 like goblins or kobolds or something like that. I think that that'd be
yeah, well,
such a fun game.
just all goblins and kobolds in general is fun. Uh,
Hmm.
I I want to play Kobolds Ate My Baby. That is one of the ones on my radar. It's like I think it's
Is
like
that
a
5e or
no, it's its own game. It's kind of an old game, so it's like a rules late game, and I think the idea is you're trying to like kidnap babies to eat. So and you're kobolds, but I think it's also one of those games where you go through a lot of kobolds.
yeah.
Well, because you're kobolds, like I don't know. We were playing in a game, and my players like encountered uh, a tribe of kobolds, and like the running joke was like a kobold's lifespan is like a fruit fly. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're not very kobold friendly, but the kobolds grew on them by the end. Uh,
I played in a very fun game where kobolds were on strike against the elves because they kept dying in these dungeons that all these adventurers would come in, and they were tired of it, so they were on strike.
they went on
So,
strike.
yeah.
Were you player
Yeah.
or the GM?
As a player, I was a kobold.
Oh, so you guys were playing the kobolds on strike.
Yeah, we were actually, yeah, we played the kobolds on strike and like what they would do to the elves to try and get their voices heard.
So did they just like refuse to guard the dungeons anymore?
Yeah, they're like, here, you can have the treasure. So all these adventurers were just getting so much magic items more than they should have.
Oh my god! But no XP.
Yeah, no.
We will deny you all the XP. That sounds like a lot of fun. Um,
Hmm.
well, we have a video series where we just like kind of come up with some different ideas, um, for D&D monsters or D&D races and how you can use them. And we do these stupid bits in the beginning, and one of them was a kobold labor dispute that the players were brought in to settle because sometimes you got to do that. So
Yep.
we're coming up on the hour mark. Any final thoughts before we head on out?
Well, you can if you uh enjoyed this, you can find me on Dice on Ice YouTube channel, as well as I'm going to shout out Mini Terrain Domain because that is mostly where you can find me if I'm not on Dice on Ice. You can find me on Twitch, Mini Terrain Domain, uh, and you can also find Ted there as well every Thursday as we play Dawnbreakers. So Yeah.
Yes, and as always, there are links in the description. And after this isn't live anymore, we'll
Thank
put
you.
them in the pinned comment as well. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a blast, and until next time, stay nerdy.
Thank you so much.